Fairmont Crest is never as gentle as it looks. That night, in the cool blue haze of a bar tucked behind the country club, where the clink of glasses sounds like cold keystrokes on a contract already bearing an invisible signature, Hayley walked in telling herself that the recent chaos was only an undertow that would soon recede. She did not expect a moment that would stab straight into her chest, did not brace for the metallic weight pressing against her sternum when she saw Izaiah, once a live wire running beneath her life, lean through a band of shadow and put his mouth on Eva's as if planting a flag. It was not a quick touch, not a stray minute, it was timed in breath and angle and cue, as if Izaiah knew exactly when the light would sweep past, as if he understood this bar housed eyes more avid than hidden cameras. For a very long second, Hayley stopped hearing the music and heard only her blood rushing like a night train, carrying every time she had tried to act magnanimous, every performance of forgetting, every private mantra that she had moved on. The truth was she never had, and Fairmont Crest never lets anyone move on without charging interest calculated in humiliation, jealousy, and choices you can't take back. The first feeling was not jealousy but disgrace. Not because of Eva, whom Hayley has painted in different shades depending on how she wakes up, but because of the way Izaiah placed everything in public like a trap cushioned in velvet, forcing her to step on it. Hayley understands the language of staged moments. She knows a kiss can be an invitation and just as easily a verdict. In Fairmont Crest, anything not hidden is something curated to be seen. If Izaiah wanted cover, he would have taken it. If he let it show, then he priced the benefits of being seen. What pushes a man who once swore no one would ever catch him slipping to flip a spotlight on himself like this? Hayley shifted half a step, not to flee, but to balance, because she felt the tremor of a structure much larger than the thin surface seen before her. A kiss doesn't kill, but it can be the switch for a chain of effects, a covert alliance, a swap of patrons, a funding stream rerouted from its old channel into a new pocket. She remembered the days she and Izaiah sketched plans on napkins, arrows connecting sponsors, projects, trusts, and power players whose path could be bent with a text sent at the right minute. That man never did anything pointless. If he was here, placing Eva in the exact spot where the bar's eyes would pivot, he was pushing a different piece in a darker place. Hayley's anger didn't flare into destructive flame, it sank and thickened, cold as a blade aligned with the heart. She began to compute instead of explode, because in this world a spectacle only feeds someone else. She ran through the data like a seasoned auditor. Izaiah's disappearances that matched no meeting calendar she knew, messages returned late and half-sent like forged fingerprints, a string of black and white photos posted by an obscure photographer suddenly racking up hundreds of likes from accounts tied to brands Eva is hungry to court. She knows Eva is not naive. Standing in the middle of the room to receive that kiss is likely not a victory but an assignment. Hayley doesn't believe in coincidence in a place where people learn to turn coincidence into evidence to be used months later. She steadied her breath, restored her ability to list, and quickly drafted a new map, Izaiah wanting to flip a profit axis, Eva wanting to climb one rung higher, and Hayley, if she stayed put, becoming the obstacle the two of them would gladly combine forces to shove aside. Once the roles are set, the game is legible. She doesn't need to exhume the past to punish herself, she needs to reset the present to choke their future. What makes Hayley dangerous is not allure but the capacity to turn pain into an equation. She left the bar like someone who has just fixed a microphone under a table, making no sound beyond the firm rhythm of heels. Outside, the wind touched her cheek like a safe swinging open. She recalled the contracts Eva might reach through her new network, the events whose organizers would swap out a name on the stage if one photo implied the right thing. She knows which reporters can inflate a suspicion, which women have left this bar with shattered hearts and would tell their stories for the prompt of a single line, and how a story steeped in moral posturing can wreck a selection process Eva has spent months sculpting. She does not need to expose the kiss, she needs to plant questions in the right soil. Why, just before the new allocation for a foundation's charitable campaign, did Izaiah and Eva show up together? Why is the only crisp photo in a bar famous for bad light the one that fits the logo of a brand Eva is lobbying for into a corner of the frame? Why is the photographer the cousin of a former project assistant who was replaced back when Hayley still coordinated? 3 questions are enough to form an undertow, and at Fairmont Crest the undertow kills before anyone realizes they're already under. Even so, the most frightening power is not making others lose, but refusing to lose while under attack. Hayley went home, stripped off the postcard version of herself, and sat at a scarred wooden desk only she knows was nicked the night she signed her first defiant contract. She opened her laptop, pulled files into stacks, and fused broken scraps of transaction history between funds and individuals. She saw doors cracking open, a shadow auxiliary account, a pilot grant, a conference invite stamped with the name of a financial advisor Izaiah once tried to recruit. Her rule is simple. Once 2 data points tilt toward a single spot, find a third to make a plane strong enough to stand on. The third clue came from her own pain, remembering a small habit of Izaiah's he never managed to break, a flaw in the trail a man too confident often leaves, excess precision. He arrives on the dot, departs on the minute, and that neatness, repeated across locations, draws a line so straight it's laughable. A human timeline is never that straight, unless someone is holding the ruler. Who holds the ruler? Hayley wrote 3 names, set them in overlapping circles, and accepted that to survive she must enter the hottest zone of the diagram, where every line cuts like a knife. On the other side, Eva is not naive about the storm. She does not get drunk on the kiss or nap on a fragile prize. She knows the ladder she climbs is made not of wood but mirrors. Every step is a self-inspection, and every cracked rung bleeds instantly into rumor. Eva can feel the chill from rooms she hasn't entered, rooms where men button their coats, speak of ethics, and then fund whoever makes them feel the least guilty. She knows she can be dropped into a bin with 2 keystrokes if the angle of a story is right. What she needs is not another kiss but a cushion of clean data, a string of indisputable work product and a cluster of witnesses who won't be bought. She reorganizes the calendar, pulls in collaborators who are curt but immune to flattery. She orders mini-audits of earlier work so that when accusations come she can slide stone-dry ledgers across the table. But she also knows her opponents won't smash a mirror with a rock, they'll take a razor to the edges so it cracks from the rim and fails by itself. So she reinforces the margins, assistants, drivers, venue doormen, the tiny nodes where the first whisper always starts. She stops smiling at people who used to overlook her and starts addressing them by surname, a necessary distance that signals the game has entered a new round. Izaiah, the center of the image and the epicenter of the signal, is not clueless. He knows Hayley won't cry where anyone can see, and he knows Eva won't take another step with him unless she sees an exit. But he also knows that in Fairmont Crest victories don't go to the best guessers but to those who prepare for their own miscalculations. The kiss was not a goal, it was bait to sample the reflex of 3 camps, those who control budgets, those who steer chatter, and those who hold legal levers. If the first camp stirs, he'll reprice his invisible stake in the project Eva is chasing. If the second flares, he'll sell information in waves to buy patches of calm. If the third twitches, he'll pivot his campaign to a theater where rumor must pass 2 filters before it reaches a buyer's ear. He doesn't fear being hated, he fears being forgotten. Hatred still counts as existence, oblivion is the end. So he accepts the cold eyes of bar staff, a few cutting lines on anonymous accounts, in exchange for the big picture he carries, his name spoken in 3 meetings that leave no minutes and a fund decision signed with another man's pen but ink he chose. He thinks of Hayley the way one thinks of a hurricane, sandbags stacked, roof lashed, evacuation list rehearsed. He thinks of Eva as a gate, openable or impassable depending on the wind. He repeats his favorite lie of the powerful, the only person I must control is myself. When news of the bar scene begins leaking from nowhere traceable, Fairmont Crest vibrates at a frequency only long-time residents can hear. Assistants text longer than usual, department heads are overly polite, sponsors stay quiet a few beats before approving a spend. Silence is always a bad sign, like a glassy lake just before a log bobs up. Hayley chooses not to strike head-on. She knows public punches let others sketch her with blunt strokes, while she needs a precise portrait in a fight in which the opponent steps into the frame and paints themselves. She starts at the margins, suggesting a process check at an unglamorous charity program where Eva has just applied as a partner. She doesn't accuse Eva, she questions transparency. Questions spread like a fungus, colorless, odorless, exploding in the dark of institutions that think they're solid. Men who love to speak of integrity find themselves asked to prove it on paper. Savvy women recognize that standing too close to someone trending in the wrong way can splash mud up their hemline. Eva receives a request for supplemental documentation, a bureaucratic note that seems harmless but signals someone is digging deep foundations. She answers properly, provides more than asked, turns suspicion into a stage for professionalism. With each document sent, she feels the cord of responsibility tighten at her wrist, a reminder that one misstep will tug an entire chain. Hayley's inner front is not calm either. At night, when the apartment quiets and the streetlights pour ink across the ceiling, she faces the mirror and sees three faces stacked: the betrayed woman, the engineer of schemes, and the young girl who once loved a man because he understood how the world works. Each face pulls her a different way. The woman wants revenge, the engineer wants structural victory, the girl wants to leave the jungle and find a road where the sunlight is real. She knows the most unpleasant truth: all three are right, and all three are wrong. Walking away won't free her from the shadow of older choices, revenge won't erase humiliation, and structural wins will demand a piece of her soul she isn't ready to sell cheap. She gathers the three vectors into the only grip she trusts: the right to draw boundaries. She decides every tactic must answer one question, not whether it is effective, but whether it turns her into a version of herself she despises. That rule sounds soft but is harder than steel to someone used to striking without a tremor. Then, like every Fairmont crest storm, a detail that seemed minor rams the center. An anonymous post appears on a coy news site, naming no one but describing enough for insiders to recognize their place in the frame, hinting at layered collaborations between a new fund, an old advisor, and a punctual figure who stands at every hot point. The comments split into camps as smoothly as wine poured before dinner. A weekend event that Eva hoped would serve as a convincing debut tightens like a drumhead. The presence of budget deciders means they will come to scrutinize, not congratulate. Hayley is neither pleased nor sad. She breathes like a diver. She does not need the sky to fall, she needs a crack just wide enough to reveal the mold beneath the bricks. She arrives like a longtime acquaintance who has forgotten the way out, stands where she can scan the flow, reads eyes for the scent of fresh intel. She sees Eva move more sparingly, speak less, smile less, placing each greeting like a line in an audit packet. She sees Izaiah lingering at the edge, neither in nor out, like a predator waiting for a belly to flash. She understands the new balance is fragile and that the only thing missing for a collapse is a tiny failure of self-control by people who believe they are sovereign. By day's end the city is glazed with fine mist, big houses humming with HVAC like hearts trying to stay steady. Hayley returns to her apartment in a silence deep enough to hear paper curling on the desk from the damp. She doesn't flip the light. The dark helps her see the boundary lines she drew. She knows she has pushed Izaiah and Eva to the lip, not to topple them, but to force a choice about which side of truth they stand on. Choices are never innocent, choice is the only proof life accepts. She recognizes there will be no perfect ending. Certain doors closed forever the second she saw the kiss, and any victory after that is only compensation. But compensation is still compensation, and humans live on it. She lets herself sit, breathe, and place her hand on the file she has prepared for next week, when she will put the right questions to the right people at the right time in a voice so calm it unsettles them. In Fairmont Crest, real vengeance is not the sound of a fist on a table, it's the turn of a page. The turn of a page is the sound of a slope giving way, a window flinging open, of people who thought they stood above the rules realizing the rules have shifted without warning. On a parallel street, Eva dims the lights and sits in an empty kitchen with a calendar already saturated in ink. She knows this is the cost of ambition in a place with no tolerance for softness. She does not regret the kiss, regret doesn't patch a hole. She regrets underestimating the speed of questions. She resolves to cut a few strings tomorrow, to be blunt with some contacts, to forfeit a bit of short-term advantage for a cleaner base, because the road is long and she will not be trapped in a fire she cannot put out. She also recognizes a cutting truth: the farther she goes, the more she resembles people she once judged. The only strength keeping her on the side she chose is discipline with herself. At dawn she will send 3 emails, delete 17 excess messages, and step onto the next stage in shoes that do not slip. If she fails, she will fail standing straight. If she survives, she will survive by not letting anyone else write her final chapter. And Izaiah, in a hotel room muffled by heavy drapes, studies the notes on the wall like circuit lines on a machine he is running. The flywheel is spinning, no hand can stop it without losing a few fingers. His phone vibrates, a text from an unsaved number confirming an unscheduled meeting, someone wanting to discuss a very lucrative expansion. He smiles thinly, knowing exactly what to say, exactly what not to say, and knowing that between saying and not saying, what slips away is never just time. He yanks down a 3rd note, peels the tape, leaves 2 filaments stretched across the wall, and steps back. In that rare second he feels what he hates to admit: the ground beneath his feet is damp. Not from rain, but from a newly tapped aquifer. It won't gush, it will seep, spread, soften. And when the earth softens, even the stoutest structures shudder. He clenches his hand, not from fear, but because a simple reflex can keep a person from slipping. That reflex is silence, timed. Fairmont Crest ends a long day in a counterfeit quiet that outsiders would call peace. In truth, it's the moment before an aftershock, when everyone lays a hand on their lever and counts to 3. Hayley, Eva, and Izaiah step into a night defined only by sustained tension, where small decisions carry the weight of sentences. No one remains a pure victim, no one a spotless villain. There are only players less and less convinced by their own reflections and more adept at turning pain into clean fuel for dirty plans. Here, anger is no longer an explosion, it is fuel, flowing silently through tangled pipes, feeding engines that never cool. And when one person's machine stutters, there will be no red light, no siren, only a soft click of a blown fuse, a black screen, and a silence long enough for someone, at some desk, to smile.